Hi, this is the weekly update for Mr. Fix's Science class for the week of August 20th. All right, so let's take a look at what we did this week. So we had the check-in on Monday, so let's take a look at that. So students have an opportunity to check in, let me know what their what their mindset is at that point in time, and if they need any assistance from an adult or a check-in from that at all. So that's what we did on Monday. All right, then we worked on some collaboration. We looked at what I asked them a question basically, what does collaboration look like and what does it sound like and what it is. So, collaboration is basically working together to achieve some kind of common goal or shared goal. And so, we discussed what teams that collaborate well, what do we see in those teams, and what are some things that they say. So that led us to Tuesday. So then we formally wrote the norms of collaboration, or we didn't write them. We actually had them glued. I gave them a copy, and we glued them into our reference notebook. So it's on page 3, norms of collaboration. So these are the 7 norms that groups that successfully collaborate, what all the members do in that group to successfully collaborate. So we talked about what pausing is, paraphrasing, posing questions, putting ideas on the table, providing data, paying attention to self and others, and presuming positive intentions. So we're going to keep track of that on page 4. We're keeping track of our progress in those norms throughout the year. And then what I did is I also gave them on page 5 some science writing and talking sentence starters, so to help them with how to pose a question, how to provide data, how to paraphrase, etc. And then on page 6 it continued. So we put that in our notebook and we started doing that. So we began an activity called Obsertainer, where I gave them an object. And this is the object. And so students made observations, like the color, the shape, the flatness, how it felt on one side versus the other side. When they noticed that when they moved the object around, they heard a noise or the noise stopped. So those were our initial observations. And then from there, students came up with, hey, what's the big question that comes to your mind automatically? And so the big question is, well, what does it look like inside? And so then students wrote down a prediction. They modeled their thinking and what they thought it looked like. And then they did some more systematic observations to further change their model of their thinking, their prediction, etc. So basically what this was an example of how science works, science in action, where we observe a phenomenon that makes us go, form a question. From the question, we model our thinking of how or why something works. And then we go make more observations, come back and change or adjust our model of our thinking accordingly. So that's science in action. So we finished up on Wednesday. All right, so students did a preliminary assessment on heat transfer thinking, where they were given 12 multiple choice questions in Schoology, and they answered them. And it wasn't for a grade. This is just to get them thinking about these concepts and for me to kind of gain an understanding where they're at. So they did that on Wednesday. Then we did introduction to Save the Penguins activity, or kind of unit that we're doing. Basically, it's all about protecting the penguin, making sure they stay cool. And to do that, they're going to become engineers. They're going to design and build a shelter to try to reduce the amount of thermal energy transfer that goes through their shelter via conduction, convection, and radiation. So we had an intro to that. And then on Thursday, we started the soda can, or cold soda activity, where we have phenomena. You're going on a field trip and must pack a lunch to take with you. You put a can of cold soda in your lunch bag in the morning, but when you open your lunch later that day, the soda was warm. And why? So the problem to solve is, how do you keep the heat energy from the can surrounding from going to the can? And so in our reference notebook, let me see if I can find that reference notebook. There we go. So on page 7, we wrote down the 2 heat transfer key terms. There's going to be 8 total, but we just started with 2. So heat is the movement of thermal energy from an area of higher temperature to an area of lower temperature. So here's the area of higher temperature, and thermal energy is moving to an area of lower temperature. And then thermal energy is the total energy of motion of the atoms and molecules that a substance is made of. All right, so then we moved on to experiment time. So water has been placed into 6 soda cans. They have been in the refrigerator. They have the following materials wrapped around them: toilet paper, plastic wrap, wool sock, cotton sock, aluminum foil, nothing. Actually, it wasn't plastic wrap. We actually ended up using, I'm going to change that really quick. All right, so we ended up using construction paper, so plastic wrap. And then what students did is they copied down the data table. So for a duration of maybe 21 minutes, it might go longer than that, we're going to record the temperature of the water in the soda can for each wrapping of the soda can for every minute. So basically, those soda cans are in the fridge, we're taking them out, and as they're out of the fridge, we're seeing how the temperature changes over time every minute. All right, and so with that, we're collecting data on Friday today, and and then finally, well, we're going to continue that. We're going to look at analyze the data that we collected on Monday. And then we have our first homeschool connection number 1. So I gave that homework on Thursday. And I went over, we added and we annotated this. The due date was Friday, and I had them write down various things that were required. So like anytime they have to describe their thinking and have them explain why they chose what they did, they had to write complete full sentences. And I also sent you the link that basically how I went over in class what was required for that assignment. Again, they have to talk to you. So this video goes into more detail on that. All right, so that's basically what we did this week. I hope you have a good weekend. Bye-bye.